Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jess Majewski. These are my co-hosts Egan Walsh and Matthew Rogers. And today we're going to be talking about the legendary artist that is Pink Floyd. We're going to be talking about their three most significant albums, The Wall, Dark Side of the Moon, and Wish You Were Here. Matthew, you want to give your thoughts about the album first?
Dark Side of the Moon?
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon, yeah, it's my favorite album ever. I think it's perfect. I don't think there's a single song on it that is bad. I think from front to back, it's just like a complete masterpiece. I don't know what to say about it. It's just like incredible in every way. I don't know, Egan, you have anything to say about it?
That is a pretty strong assessment, but I think it's one that I would agree with. I love this album. I've listened to it countless times. I could listen to it countless more. I mean, the track list is incredible. The pacing is incredible. The instrumentation is incredible. Everything about it just sits together so nicely, and it all comes together as something that's just way more than the sum of its parts.
I honestly couldn't have put it better myself. I think it's their strongest album that they've ever released. Like you said, the track list is great. It's a really atmospheric album, and it's just incredibly well paced, and you guys honestly put it best.
Yeah. So what are your guys' what are your guys' thoughts on certain songs on the album? Like, what are your guys' favorite songs? Let's talk about that for a second. What are your favorite songs on the album?
I mean, my personal favorite song, is Brain Damage is a really good one. And I think that's my favorite song. I think it's probably one of the best Pink Floyd songs that's ever been written. And something about the atmospheric tracks on the album are just like wonderful. Like they just feel incredibly well paced, and like it leaves you with a sense of like grandeur almost combined with the rest of the track list. So that's
definitely.
Totally agree. I also think Brain Damage, probably one of my favorite songs ever. Not even top three on like my list or best songs on the album, but I think it's like such a perfect closing to the album. It's such like a grand, closing to an already amazing piece of work, and then also with Eclipse after it makes it even better.
Yeah, I think that particularly the eeriness of that song is really just something that it kind of strikes a chord deep within someone listening to that. You're just like, wow, it's got a crazy effect. You listen to the album for the first time and you get to that part and you're like, whoa, everything before it starts to hit you, and it leads into Eclipse so well, which just those two tracks combined, it's just a wonderful way to end a wonderful album. I can't agree with saying that that's my favorite song on the album. It's a great one nonetheless.
That's fair.
My personal favorite, I've got a few favorites. I would say definitely Money is fantastic. Great Gig in the Sky is fantastic. I personally believe that that's an extremely underrated song. But my personal favorite, it's Time.
Totally agree.
It's so good.
Totally agree.
I mean, from the moment you hear the alarms and the clocks just clanging around, and then the dramatic buildup of the drums into the release, it's perfect.
And the guitar solo on it, David Gilmour.
Perfect.
Oh my God, it's perfect. Probably my favorite song ever.
I think I might agree.
Yeah, that song is.
It's so good.
That's a totally fair assessment. I think Breathe is also a really underrated song. It's nice. I think it's like one of the slowest songs on the album, isn't it? It's like the most slowed down, lax-paced songs, and it's really nice to listen to, even like outside of the context of the album. It's just nice to sit down and listen to it, like maybe going for a night drive. That's when I listen to the song, is I'm like going out, maybe like just clearing my head or something. I put that song on. I don't know what about it. It's just such a calming and like relaxing song. And it ends so abruptly into the next track, which I'm drawing a blank as to what it is. But it's like an incredibly abrupt end to just like a totally slow-paced song.
Yeah, that song is On the Run, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
That song is also, I think, like another underrated track. In fact, I think any non-popular song on this album, I would say, it's an underrated track, because it's like I just don't find any of the songs on there bad. But On the Run, I think it's just there's no words, and it's just kind of like eerie sounds the whole time, but it like kind of really accurately represents like the feeling of like almost paranoia through just music and just sound. It's like, I think it's an incredible track. Another track that I personally would like put as probably like third best song on the album is Any Color You Like. I think that song is like so cool. It actually feels like it feels like I'm listening to colors, like just being played. Like Richard Wright's like just keyboard playing and the skills with synth he uses is incredible. And then also David Gilmour's guitar on it, it just goes so well with the synth as well, and it just creates this amazing song that just sounds like blasting through like a rainbow almost. Like I don't know how else to describe it.
No, that's a perfect way to put it. Egan, what do you think about it?
I completely agree. I think with Breathe, that's one of the exceptional tracks. It's kind of a standout in Pink Floyd's discography because it's a song that you can listen to on its own outside of the context of the album, and you still get a very fulfilling experience. Whereas a lot of their songs, I find, while they're nice to listen to on their own, it's much more enjoyable when you listen to it within the track list that it was meant to be listened to. With On the Run, it's a great way to just summarize that feeling of doom and kind of just anxiety, just nervousness. And Any Color You Like, that is one of my favorite instrumental songs ever. That's like, there's so much happening and there's so much feeling, even though there's no words, it still feels something very human because there's a lot of back and forth and push and pull. And I think that's my favorite part of the album as a whole, that there's highs and lows, there's parts that are more ambient and a little bit more relaxed, and then there's parts that are big and dramatic and explosive, parts that are, grooving, and parts that are kind of just make you sit and think. Like, the differences between something like Money and Brain Damage, it's very, very different feelings, but it all works together. The balance is perfect. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think something to add on to Any Color You Like is like the lead up to Any Color You Like Us and Them. Us and Them is a song before Any Color You Like, and it just transitions into Any Color You Like so well because Us and Them is slowly building up. It's like, I think 7 minutes long. It's that long for a reason. It's slowly building up. It has a couple high points, but then it finally gets to its peak, and that peak is Any Color You Like. And that's why it's super important to listen to it as an album rather than just singular tracks, so you can get that feeling of waiting and being patient and then getting to that peak.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen? Anything else you'd like to add on before we wrap up?
I don't know. Ratings of the album out of 10?
Me personally, I'd give. It was a 9, and I just recently re-listened to it. I think I'm gonna have to give it a 10.
10.
10 out of 10, yeah.
I'm giving it a 10.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else you could give this album, to be honest.
I think I might have to argue that, I haven't listened to all of the music out there, but from all the music that I've listened to, this is probably my favorite album. I've listened to it so often. I will continue to listen to it so often. I think I've listened to it twice today, and I've gotten so much joy from doing so.
Wait, that's it? Only twice?
It's just so good, and it's my favorite.
That's
totally agree.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment. So that was our thoughts on Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, an absolutely legendary album.
Hey guys, welcome back from the break. Now we're going to be talking about our second album of this episode, Wish You Were Here. Jess, what are your thoughts and opinions on this album?
So my thoughts on the album are that while it is a pretty long album, considering that half of the track list is like 9, I think, parts of one song, I think it is a very thematically and like just the overall atmosphere and vibe of the album is like very well like constructed, and the whole, I don't know, I guess like just the way the album flows feels so nice, even though you have the like first 6 parts at the start of the album and the last 3 parts at the end of the album. It just flows so well. Like I think the start of parts 1 through 6 is just like an amazing intro to the album, and I just think it flows incredibly well, especially like considering how well other Pink Floyd albums flow. It's just like it seems to be the best out of them.
I disagree. I think
Fair
as
enough.
far as Pink Floyd goes, you have to talk about Wish You Were Here. It's monumental to the band's story, but musically, I feel like across a track list of only 4 or 5 songs, depending on what you're talking about with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, it's got 4 very distinct sounds across those 4 songs, and because it transitions from one to the next to the next to the next, it does feel a little bit jarring, to me at least, when I listen from one to the next. But it's not really something that detracts from the album all that much. It's something that I wish maybe could have been executed just a little bit better, knowing that it's Pink Floyd and that they've done it so well in the past. As far as it goes with their other albums, I think Wish You Were Here just doesn't do it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Wish You Were Here, the song, and like Shine On You Crazy Diamond are 2 completely different tracks.
Definitely.
They sound so much, or just actually either part. I was gonna like specify 1 through 5, but 6 through 9 doesn't sound anything like Wish You Were Here either. Wish You Were Here is like super acoustic. It sounds like David Gilmour was just in his garage and just made Wish You Were Here, while Shine On You Crazy Diamond seems like they went to like a symphony orchestra and created this masterpiece.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the way you talk about it's jarring. I don't know. To me, it's kind of, I get what's the word, like charming, I guess, to me. Like I don't know. I get what you're saying, that it feels like kind of disjointed between like the 4 different sounds of the album. But I don't know. I feel like it was done tastefully, at least in my opinion. I guess we'll agree to disagree on that. But I think the transition was pretty well between the sounds. But I can understand why someone would find it jarring. So
Yeah, I think like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, part 1 through 5, and then it goes into Welcome the Machine, right? Yeah, I think like that transition is good, and they do that perfectly because it actually is a transition on the album. I think it's like the only one between 2 songs.
I think so, yeah.
But that transition is actually good, and I think those 2 sound alike. But as soon as Welcome the Machine ends and it goes to Have a Cigar, it sounds somewhat similar. Or does it go to Have a Cigar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to Have a Cigar, and it sounds somewhat similar, but it's like somewhat different at the same time. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
No, I get that. Can we talk about the absolute masterpiece that is Welcome to the Machine?
No.
I feel like it's just such an underrated song. If you can even call any Pink Floyd song underrated, but if you were to call one underrated, I think it would be Welcome to the Machine. It's just, I think it's the least streamed song on the whole album, at least according to Spotify. And that to me is just a huge injustice. I think it's like one of the, like, I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just the vibe that the song gives off, and just like the lyrics, just the delivery of them is so powerful. I think it's just like it's such a well-written song, and I don't see it getting nearly as much credit as it should. What do you guys think? About that?
I have to disagree, as I kind of already stated. But I mean, I think it's a great song. Welcome to the Machine is like, yeah, I think it's actually one of the best songs in the album, but there's only 5 songs, to be fair. Yeah. But like, Welcome to the Machine is just, I wouldn't go as far to say it's a masterpiece. What do you think, again?
I've got some hot takes about
oh boy,
about the songs on Wish You Were Here. My favorite is parts 1 through 5 of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I don't think anyone's gonna argue with that. I've never had an argument about that ever. it's perfect. I think everyone kind of agrees that it's just absolutely fantastic. Next up, Have a Cigar. I just think it's so groovy. The only songs on the album that I'm not really crazy about are Welcome to the Machine and Wish You Were Here. They're both great in their own right, but if I'm listening to Wish You Were Here, I'm listening primarily so that I can, listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And I think that's mostly a result of the theme of the album, which is a tribute to Syd Barrett, the former member of Pink Floyd. He helped start the band as a singer and guitarist, but as he consumed more drugs, he slowly lost his mind.
Yeah.
I think it's a great tribute to him, and the parts about Syd Barrett are, in my opinion, the best parts, which is why I have very mixed feelings on the song Wish You Were Here, because as a tribute to a person, that song is fantastic. Listening to it outside of the album, it's a fantastic song. That's why it's the most well-known song. But when you listen to the album as a unit, it doesn't really feel like it's part of the behemoth that's a tribute to him.
Yeah. Let's talk about that concept for a second, how Wish You Were Here is resolved around the former band member, Syd Barrett. Syd Barrett he was the main guy in Pink Floyd back in the 60s, the late 60s, back when they first started. He was the guitarist and the vocalist, but kind of got consumed by the industry, started consuming lots of drugs, kind of went off the deep end in his mental state, and I think the songs like Welcome to the Machine, not Welcome to the Machine, Shine Your Crazy Diamond, are like Shine Your Crazy Diamond Part 1 through 5, I think is one of the best tribute songs ever to any person. I think that's just the perfect song they could have made for him, because they don't deny that what he did and what happened to him was bad, or he made obviously bad decisions, and they address that, but they also kind of shine light on him as well at the same time.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was pointed out really well. I don't know, I guess to me the reason why I think Welcome to the Machine is so good, I feel like it works as both a standalone song, listening to it outside of the album. I guess someone who hasn't listened to Wish You Were Here before, the song itself wouldn't, I guess the concepts wouldn't totally make sense to someone who doesn't know the themes of the album, but I think to anyone who's listened to it at least once, it just stands alone great, and I think it's just such a thematic song.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts, you guys?
No, I don't know. I don't think I have any. You have any, Egan?
I think the one thing I'd like to say about Wish You Were Here is that it's a very ambient and aesthetic album, which I really like, because Pink Floyd's sound, it kind of shifts a lot from psychedelic to a little bit more experimental, and then to some kind of just Roger Waters sounds later. But this is a really nice middle point.
All right, I think that's going to be the end for our Wish You Were Here segment, and we'll see you guys after the break with their 1979 album, The Wall.
Welcome back to The Jam. Our final album that we'll be talking about for this episode is the 1979 album, The Wall. This album was a little bit more of Roger Waters' project as opposed to a collective Pink Floyd album, but it certainly incorporates elements from each of the members. Matt, what are your thoughts on this album?
I think this album actually used to be my favorite album ever. I listened to this album nonstop. I think I've gone a little bit over it only because I've played it like 3,000 times, and it does get slow at some points, and that's why I started listening to Dark Side of the Moon more. But The Wall, I think it's an amazing album though. I think it's I don't really think there's any flaws. I think the slow parts are there for a very, very important reason, and they kind of build up to, finally getting to the trial and getting to, just the climax of the whole story of The Wall. And yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think I honestly agree for the most part. I agree about the slow parts. I think my most major gripe about this album though is the slow parts. I do understand that they're necessary or as a necessity and thematically, that makes sense and I understand it. But I feel like it does on re-listens kind of drag a bit. I think it's around the middle part of the album that it really starts to slow down, towards the middle. And I don't know, it's just, to me, they sound great when you're first listening to it, and then when you try to re-listen to it multiple times, it just kind of feels like a little bit of a drag trying to get through it. They're still great songs, it's just, it feels a little too slow compared to, like you said, Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And those slow songs as well are totally non-re-listenable. Mm-hmm. They are with the album, but there's gotta be I don't know, I think the song, how many songs are on the album? 28?
27.
Yeah, 27. There's gotta be
26.
15 to 17 songs on that album that I've never listened to on its own. I only listen to them if I'm listening to the whole album. But that's on the contrary, there's a bunch of songs on that album. I mean, I only said 17 out of 27. There's still 10 songs on the album that I listen to constantly. So,
What about you, Egan?
I agree. For the most part, there's a lot of songs that are slow that I wouldn't come back to. I'm not getting home after school and thinking, man, I really want to listen to Bring the Boys Back Home. It's not gonna happen. But I do definitely think that the slow parts on the album are definitely necessary. With The Wall, there's such a story and a theme throughout the entire thing, and that story being a jaded rock star, Pink, who's feeling more and more isolated from the world that he lives in, all these different hardships in his life coming together to build up this massive wall that separates him from the outside world. It's a great story, and for the story to be told properly, there needs to be highs and lows, rises and falls to the story, as well as to the music, and that's why I think it works for the most part with the highs and lows. The only issue is that when you're listening to it just for purely the audio experience, you might not get as much enjoyment from listening to a song like Bring the Boys Back Home.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, honestly, I think you put it best with no one's gonna come home after school and listen to the Boys Back Home. I think we should talk about the songs the album's most iconic songs. For example, The Wall Part 2. They're easily one of their most iconic songs of all time, if not the most. It's for good reason. It's such a well put together album or song, excuse me. It's just a really well put together song, and I guess just when it transitions from the chorus, you can hear the really sparkly guitars in the background, and they just sound really satisfying to listen to, and it's just such a well constructed album. Song, excuse me.
Yeah, I agree. Enough with the slow parts and the lows. Let's get to the highs. Another Brick in the Wall, one of my favorite songs for good reason.
Really?
It's fantastic.
I think you have more controversial opinions on that one.
No. I love that song. It's great. That was one of the first songs by Pink Floyd that I liked, But my absolute favorite is Comfortably Numb.
100%.
That is such a masterpiece of a song. David Gilmour alone, I mean, you could take those 2 solos, make it as an instrumental. That's still probably going to be one of the greatest songs of all time.
Oh, for
the
sure.
first solo is just this nice, soaring, beautiful solo in the middle of like a relatively dark song,
Yeah.
and it brings you up, and you're like, okay, wow, this is some great stuff. Goes back into the chorus, you know, a little bit of a Debbie Downer, then it comes back up into the final solo, and you're like, oh my
Great solo
God,
ever.
I
Great solo ever.
can't handle this. It's, yeah, I think I
Yeah,
would
that
say
solo
that's
is-
probably my favorite guitar solo ever.
goodness.
That thing
Yeah.
is just like soul crushing in the best way possible. Like
Yeah.
I would, I would listen to
No, I
that.
get what you're saying.
I would
yeah.
listen to that on repeat, and I do, because I can.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
Comfortably numb. I don't really know what else to say. Comfortably numb. Yeah, that song is yeah, it's amazing beyond belief. I don't know. I don't think like mirroring, like I don't think anybody else could make a song like that except David Gilmour as well. Like that song is just beyond incredible, and he just lets it all out, lets loose with his guitar skills, and just goes wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the way Egan put it as just like you get the what was it, the solo or the chorus? I don't remember. That brings you up after like the middle of the song, and it just feels like such a roller coaster of a song. Like you were stating, like it goes up and then it comes back down, and it's like the emotions are all over the place, but at the same time they feel like organized, and it feels like Matthew was saying, David Gilmour just absolutely lets loose on the song, and it's just wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another very important song on the album is The Trial. After, you listen to 20-something songs and you're getting to the end of the album, there's this massive climax. It's very, very dramatic.
Yeah.
Almost theatrical.
Yeah, it
with
feels like a movie.
The
Yeah.
Trial.
for sure.
What do you guys think?
I mean, I was actually gonna say that about the whole album. Like, it just feels like a movie. I remember the first time I listened to this, he like begged me to listen to it for like
I did.
like ages, and, like for a month or something, just every day, like listen to this album. And I finally did, and I was like, wow, that was like a movie. And I was like, I didn't know an album could be like that. That was incredible.
That just goes to show that I'm always right. Just
Yeah,
what do you
sure,
think?
buddy.
I honestly, what was already said, I don't think I could put it any better, to be honest. It really just does feel like a movie. It's like it's just such a thematic and like linear, I guess the way to put it, but in a good way. Like it's a very linear album, but it's just such a well constructed story.
All right, anybody have any closing thoughts on the album before we wrap it up?
Ratings? 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
I'd say a pretty high 9. It's
respectable.
I don't know. I think just the slow parts of it, like they're necessary, but it just kills it a little for me. So I'd give it like a high 9.
I want to say 10. Don't attack me, buddy.
I won't.
But I'll give it like a 9.
9.7.
7. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway, that was 1979's The Wall. A lot of influence from Roger Waters. And overall, a behemoth of an album. Very, very dramatic and very theatrical. One of my favorites. Thanks for listening.